What is the current situation right now when it comes to grain in stores in Ukraine and the prospect of getting that out?
Look, at present, it's looking a little bit better. Frankly, we've been able to shift around about 500,000 tonnes in the last 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks of August, 500,000 tonnes have left, and I anticipate approximately that again in the next 2 weeks. So 1 million tonnes. However, that's a long way away from 4 million tonnes to 5 million tonnes, which we normally would export at this time of year.
And is it likely to sort of dribble out, or will this 1 million tons be the sum total of it?
Not really. Through rail and through road, we've shifted around about 2.5 million tonnes in the month, and so this is an additional 1, maybe 2 million tonnes. So at least there's a fair light in the tunnel, frankly, in our ability to be able to export. But I think it's an important point we should make at present, that just always remember that futures prices and commodity prices not often are directly related to supply and demand. They're often related to financial institutions and hedge funds. So what you will actually see today is that we have the price of wheat in particular at pre-war levels. Okay, therein lies a very interesting dilemma, because while supply is being restricted, price has fallen. The question is what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 months. And my thesis is that it's obviously a very unstable environment. Where we're exporting out of the southern ports is in a very hot military zone. And as we would say in the classics, that it doesn't take a lot to scare the farm. In other words, a few missiles in the wrong directions, and then all of a sudden insurance companies and ships may be a little reticent to really ship grain. So we're in a very, very volatile situation today. Prices are a little bit lower, which is going to help inflation in the short term. But moving forward over the next 2 to 3 months, there's a lot of unknowns.
And what about the getting next year's harvest into the ground? When will those decisions be being made? And obviously, then there's a practical consideration of whether or not the land is now a battlefield, whether there's people to do it, whether there'll be people to harvest it next year.
Two issues, really. It's all about logistics. So getting the logistics of the grain out of the country is number one. Otherwise, we don't have storage. So the biggest decision for big companies such as ourselves that are really, we produce up to 20% of the global sunflower oil production, is do we plant? And if we plant, how much? You see, it's all about how much we can store. And that depends upon how much we can get out of the country. So that depends upon the restrictions of what we can get out across rail and road through EU, and what we can get out through the southern ports, through the deep sea ports. So really, lots of unknowns. Our decision-making process has to be made within the next 8 weeks. And it's also heavily influenced by the price of energy. Your previous speaker basically clearly laid it out on the line. If there are problems with energy prices, that is to say that the war changes and there are restrictions in gas and or fuel in Europe and energy prices go through the roof, that has a material impact on farmers throughout the world and whether they plant or whether they don't.
And presumably, given that Ukraine is such a big exporter, it would make a big impact on the Ukrainian economy if it is able to keep that, at least that part of its economy, ticking over.
Of course. I mean, as I've said many times on this show, it's all about the ability of Ukraine to sustain itself, and that means to enable itself to develop under what I call new rational or irrational systems to develop a strong economy. And obviously that's going to be heavily agriculturally based. So we've got to be able to trade ourselves out of the current problems, and rather just rely on aid. And therein lies the most important thing both the EU and the UK did. They opened up effectively a free trade agreement to all soft commodities and many other, I suppose, items, including steel, etc. This allows the country to trade itself and develop a large income to be able to support its economy. But still, there's a huge gap.